tall.
Yo, smoke hard coke, yo.
Yo, chill. Yo, chill.
You look like you need to be taken care of, nigga. You look like you need to go to the dentist. You need to look like you need to brush your teeth. You look like you need hygiene, nigga. You look like you need help. Tell your man 50 saying you an ounce or something, yo.
Jim Jones thought he could talk slick about 50 and Yayo again, but Tony Yayo just dragged him back to reality. And he did it by bringing the receipts about Max B and stack bundles that had Harlem shaking for the wrong reasons. So who's the real one here? The Harlem boss or the loyal soldier? Let's break down how Yayo exposed Jim. So it all starts with Jim Jones having this long sit-down with Memphis Bleek, and that chat basically sparked everything that went down after. During the convo, Jim kept riding this what-if wave. What if Dipset stayed solid? What if old alliances didn't crumble? And you could feel that old hurt fueling his whole energy. Memphis had been bringing up Tony Yayo across platforms before this. We're talking Drink Champs, Shannon Sharp, the whole vibe. And that got under Jim's skin enough to make him respond. When Yayo's name finally popped in the Bleek interview, Jim went personal. Timing was key, too. Dude had been building that tone for hours. But at the end of the interview, he finally let the shots fly. Now you can bet your bottom dollar Yayo peeped the full interview. But he had an answer for Jim. His clapback felt surgical. Yayo uploaded the vintage music video for Do It Right on IG with French Montana and Max B. And y'all know Max went for 10 rounds with the young Jim Jones. Yayo playing chess, not checkers. And that hits Jim hard because his whole brand leans heavy on that wave he got from back in the day with We Fly High. With this recent interview, he only reminded us of how strongly he's holding on to past beefs and business slights. So you gotta hand it to Yayo, he knew exactly what he was doing. And this little back and forth between Yayo and Jim just goes to show two different schools, G-Unit and Dipset. Yayo kept it straight. He's been looked after by 50 Cent in real ways, and that goes to show how G-Unit rolled different versus Dipset and their crew. Like that time 50 copped him an apartment right after Yayo got out of the joint.
So when I came out of jail, what did 50 do? Yo, get him an apartment in Battery Park. I ain't sell a record to do nothing yet.
Where the fuck is Battery Park at?
That's right there by the Statue of Liberty.
But that was just the start of it. 50 also paid for tours, world trips, all proof that loyalty pays differently under 50's camp. Yayo used all of that to throw shade at Jim's claims of being the ultimate Harlem protector. But let's go back to the Bleek chat, cause Jim opened up another can of worms. See, he got into mocking folks' looks and bank accounts, doing his usual flex. But when Yayo came with receipts, that one-up energy didn't land so hot. Yayo's main play here is readability. He called Jim out for talking like a general, but acting like a dude who once begged 50 for features and opportunities. That flips the script, makes it look like Jim cashed in on connections before trying to sell himself as a self-made king. Remember Jim and 50 on stage being cool? It all contradicts the independent kingmaker image Jim's pushing now. Yayo called out Jim for chasing short-term wins with 50 instead of holding Dipset's squad down, and that choice still haunts his rep. But the real pain came when Yayo mentioned Max B and stack bundles. That wasn't clout. It's about legacy and losses. Yayo showed that old clip of stack bundles with a Porsche but still in the projects to prove that looking rich isn't the same as actually getting protection. Calling out Max and Stack pushed the convo into a place where Jim is most uncomfortable. Jim didn't really had his people's backs during critical times. Now this backdoor angle is specific. Let's call it as it is. Jim Jones made quite the bag off of talent without giving back. So once Yayo dropped those names, Jim Jones looked ugly online. Because back in the day, Jim Jones and 50 Cent ran the game completely different when it comes to holding it down for their people. It's all tied to where they come from, what they value, and how they play the business. 50 Cent leveled up his crew big time. Bentleys, designer drip, safe spots off the block. Tony Yayo's living proof. Dude's safe, comfortable, and stacked. 50's formula is simple. Stack the paper, secure your spot. Keep folks away from the streets. Loyalty with him comes with cash, safety, and clout. Jim Jones was more about the streets, more hands-on, which makes sense. He's been a hype man, security, manager, director, whatever it took to push his diplomats. He hooked people up with cash, studio time, tours, features, but loyalty and street authenticity is the core. Stack Bundles is the example. Jim gave him money and opportunities, tried to lift him out, but Stack stayed tied to the projects. So when Yayo landed his punch, it hit harder than a truck. But 50 just had to reach to this drama. Otherwise, he wouldn't be the menace he is today. When Jim started taunting Tony Yayo, talking about how he leaned on 50 for support, 50 didn't hesitate. He basically confirmed what everyone else was already thinking. Jim's salty because nobody's ever looked out for him the way Fifth looked out for his people. The bond 50 and Yayo have has been built on years of loyalty, shared history, and an empire they've grown together. 50's move reinforced that he's a protector for his crew. Anyone stepping at his people is stepping into his lane. But to really get it, you gotta know the history. 50 went at Jim Jones more than a few times. This one goes way back and is tangled with Dipset drama, mostly through Cameron.
Jimmy better than you anyway, Cam. You gotta watch to see how he responds.
Around 2007, 50 publicly called out Coke Records, the label Jim was signed to, calling it a graveyard for artists who'd lost relevance. That fired up Cam and Jim, and soon the diss tracks, call-outs, and heated exchanges started flying. 50 didn't just respond, he played it like a chess game. He trolled both Cam and Jim, stoked the tension, and even brought Jim and Jules Santana on stage during shows while the Cam beef was raging, making the drama public and unavoidable. Over the years, he kept poking Jim on social media, highlighting differences in success, activity, and influence, pointing out that Jim's output was quieter, his sales lower, while 50 kept stacking both paper and clout. It's a pattern. 50 knows how to get in someone's head. He uses trolling, psychological moves, and public platforms to keep Jim defensive, and it's worked for years. Jim responds, but the contrast is obvious. 50 is all about business, strategy, and market dominance, while Jim is street-rooted, loyal to Dipset, and tied to Harlem identity. There were plenty of key moments over the years, stage appearances, interviews, diss tracks, and social media digs all layered on top of one another. Each exchange reinforced 50's reputation as the strategist who always had the upper hand, while Jim fought to protect his street credibility and legacy. Fast forward to the Yayo versus Jim Jones drama. 50's reaction isn't just about siding with Yayo. It's him showing the world that his loyalty is real, consistent, and backed by action. Unlike Jim's, loyalty isn't just words or moments, it's protection, lifestyle, and security. And here's where we take the convo a step further. This wasn't just about Yayo versus Jim anymore. It turned into a lesson about the game itself. Yayo came through showing what real loyalty looks like. Dude's been consistent, stayed true to 50 Cent, and got looked after because of it. Jim, well, sometimes it's more about image and ego. That designer drip, the flashy tours, the headlines, they only get you so far if your people can't really trust you. One moment that really popped off was the Dipset versus LOX versus. Yayo called it out as proof that Jim ain't the Harlem boss he's been claiming. Fans saw the performance, the energy, the lack of respect, and it made the loyalty versus image gap obvious. Jim could flex all day, but if your people don't back you, the boss image crumbles. You can wear all the designer you want, stunt all over social media, but if loyalty isn't there, the whole image falls apart. That's the real lesson Yayo is showing, and it hits Jim right where it hurts. And for Jim, that damage might just be permanent. Jim tried to play it cool, saying, "I ain't beefing with washed rappers," but let's be real. It sounded like he was taking a step back. The posts, the flexing, the designer drip and jewelry, fans weren't impressed. Let's be real. Jim Jones has been on a wild ride lately, and not always in a good way. Dude's been making bold claims, like saying he's a better rapper than Nas. In a June 2025 interview on the Joe and Jada podcast, he straight up challenged Nas' legacy, pointing to his own Billboard chart entries and gold/platinum records like it was a scoreboard. He even flexed that he's been more viral with younger fans, claiming Nas never had that same kind of reach before 2025. Predictably, the hip-hop world wasn't having it. Fans and artists clowned him hard, defending Nas as a legendary lyricist and cultural icon. There was even a fake record called 400 Bands, and people said that even a fake Nas is better than Jim Jones. Either way, this isn't an isolated stunt. Many see Jim's recent provocations, from Nas to Yayo, and the ongoing 50 Cent drama, as moves moves to stay relevant, grab clout, and remind the world he's still in the game. But the problem for Jim is that it often comes off desperate, like he's pulling whatever trick works to stay afloat while his commercial success fades compared to his peers. He's been posting all kinds of flexes: designer fits, icy chains, expensive watches, cars, private jets, you name it. But instead of flexing clout, he's been getting roasted for it. Every post that's supposed to scream Harlem King ends up turning into a meme fest or a straight-up comment roast session. Even the blogs that usually ride for him are silent. The culture isn't sleeping on it. They see when you're chasing relevance too hard. Compare that to Yayo or 50 Cent. Yayo doesn't need to stunt. The respect and loyalty he's built over years speak louder than any chain or watch. 50 knows how to turn an image or a viral moment into long-term clout and money. Jim's approach, on the other hand, it's too reactive, even desperate at times. The flexes read like he's trying to convince people he's still at the top of the game, but the culture sees through it. It's not just about the ice, the drip, or the cars. Every viral stunt or comment is another chance for fans to judge how relevant he really is. And right now, the verdict isn't looking great. Remember the early 2000s? Jim was riding high with Dipset, hitting charts, claiming Harlem, and building a crew that had a real sense of presence. We Fly High wasn't just a hit, it was an anthem, a cultural moment. Jim's street cred was untouchable. But fast forward to 2025, and that era feels like a world away. These days, Jim leans on beefs, clout-chasing comments, and wild claims to stay in the conversation. I mean, saying you're a better rapper than Nas and claiming more viral relevance is crazy work, and the culture clowned him hard for it. Jim can stunt all he wants, but if the respect isn't there, the whole image falls apart. Fans remember the Dipset days fondly, but they also notice the gap between past dominance and present relevance. That gap is a big part of why Jim looks defensive, why he's making stunts that feel more clout-chasing than legendary. And let's talk culture. People turn Jim's attempts at relevance into a constant roast session. Memes, comments, call-outs, it's relentless. Even journalists and bloggers who usually defend him have stayed quiet. That silence is louder than any clapback. Looking at Jim now, it's clear. His personality, ego, and past glory can't carry him forever. When you're leaning too hard on image, wild claims, and stunts just to stay in the game, the culture calls it out. Jim's antics are entertaining, sure, but they also show a side of him scrambling to stay relevant, pulling tricks and throwing shade, sometimes at the expense of credibility. So, after all the receipts, the social media roasts, and the public call-outs, the big question is, what's next for Jim Jones? One thing's clear, dude is not done making noise. You can bet he's plotting ways to stay relevant, whether that's dropping surprise tracks, stirring up more beef, or teaming up with younger artists to grab attention from new audiences. But here's the catch, the game has changed. Fans aren't just listening to music, they're watching every post, every story, every flex, and judging legacy against current moves. Jim can throw on designer fits, flash chains, or hype up his past Dipset glory, but the culture measures loyalty, consistency, and credibility. Those things aren't up for flexing, they're earned over time. That's why Yayo's calm approach hits even harder. He's consistent, respected, and already has the loyalty and credibility Jim's chasing. Every stunt Jim pulls is a comparison, and the culture isn't blind. They see the difference between someone who's truly respected versus someone grasping for relevance. So what's left for Jim? Could he flip the narrative, drop a massive hit, or launch a bold collaboration that silences the critics? Maybe. Or could he keep chasing attention, playing the same stunts, and risk cementing his desperate reputation? That's the suspense the culture is living for right now. And for the audience watching all this unfold, there's only one thing left to wonder. Will Jim Jones rise back up, or has the fall-off reached a point of no return?